Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kesmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Office of Special Prosecutor refutes assertions by lawyers of embattled former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta that his office was furnished with details of his medical report. Also coming up this afternoon, 10 years on, have lessons been learned from one of Ghana's worst flood and fire disasters, which claimed over 150 lives? Details shortly. And much later, Ghana Infectious Disease Center urges members of general public to observe safety protocols as confirmed cases of the dreaded mpox disease increases to 45. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, this afternoon, let's stay on the special prosecutor's issue with former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, because the office of the special prosecutor is denying knowledge of a purported medical report by doctors of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta detailing his health conditions and his need for urgent care. The letter, currently being shared across social media platforms, details the latest medical examination of the former Finance Minister and the need for him to undertake special examinations on June 13 in what some say is a response to the OSP's news conference yesterday. But in a quick release, the OSP says that the office has at no point in time cited the purported letter currently in circulation. Let me read that public notice from the Office of the Special Prosecutor to you. And it says the Office of the Special Prosecutor, OSP, has become aware of a publication on online media purporting to be a letter from a hospital containing alleged medical report on Mr. Kenneth Ofori-Atta. We wish to place on record that neither Mr. Ofori-Atta nor his lawyers have submitted any such letter to the OSP. The only correspondence received from his legal representatives is a letter notifying the OSP of a change in his medical condition and on their say no. It is notable that this alleged hospital letter has been circulated through the media rather than submitted to the law enforcement agency actively investigating him and responsible for decisions regarding his return to Ghana. To date, no certified medical record or official document from any hospital authority has been submitted to the OSP indicating that Mr. Kenneth Ofori-Atta is incapacitated or unable to travel to Ghana. So that's the notification coming from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. We also know that the OSP has launched a manhunt for Ken Ofori-Atta, who has once again been declared wanted by the office. Now, Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabing at a news conference yesterday announced the re-entry of Ken Ofori-Atta onto the list of wanted persons after he failed to attend an in-person invitation to answer questions in 5 concurrent criminal investigations. The former Finance Minister has instead requested to meet the OSP by virtual means. According to the OSP, Ken Ofori-Atta's absence on the grounds of ill health cannot only be proven, but also as an act of bad faith that would no longer be countenanced.
OSP views Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyer's letter dated 28 May 2025 as an expression of utter bad faith on the part of Mr. Ofori-Atta, and it confirms our long-held, well-considered opinion and conclusion that Mr. Ofori-Atta has no intention of voluntarily returning to the jurisdiction and to attend the OSP. Further, this office is unaware of his purported information to the court, whether orally or by filed processes, of the alleged change in his circumstances. It is more than 3 hours past the scheduled time of Mr. Ofori-Atta's attendance at the OSP, and Mr. Ofori-Atta failed to attend the OSP today. Mr. Ofori-Atta's conduct is totally unacceptable and a baleful spite at law enforcement and criminal investigations. It ends here. It ends today. We will no longer accommodate him. Consequently, the OSP redeclares that Mr. Ofori-Atta is a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. His name is hereby re-entered on the OSP's list of wanted persons. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure Mr. OforiAttas' return to the jurisdiction and to answer to the criminal inquiries against him.
Well, private legal practitioner Martin Pigbu agrees with the OSP that OforiAtta has shown bad faith in his engagement with the investigative agency.
After February 18th, I think around 18th, that's when he was taken off. He was declared wanted on the 12th, right? Then I think it was around 18th he was taken off or something like that. Then, because he was going to do surgery on March 20th, 21. So, what I'm saying is that I'm sure at least a week before the scheduled date for the surgery, it was clear to him that the surgery was not going to come on, all right? But maybe I can still go with the OSP that let's just use the March 21st because that was the day of the surgery and surgery didn't come on. So from March 21st, you keep quiet. You don't inform the OSP that the surgery hasn't come on. So can we do something? You wait till 28th May, about maybe 5 days or so. 5 or 6 days to the scheduled meeting. That's when his lawyers wrote to OSP asking for an adjournment or call it extension of time. It's fraudulent conduct. It just tells you that's how OforiAtta has always behaved. No wonder his colleagues in parliament led by, not his colleagues, the parliamentarians led by Andy Akubi made a revolt and said Akufo-Addo should sack him. But Akufo-Addo wouldn't sack him because OforiAtta was making money for their family.
You had the private legal practitioner Martin Pigbu. Meanwhile, security analyst Richard Kumado has also questioned the former minister's request for a virtual meeting with the Office of the Special Prosecutor instead of an in-person session. He says that persons under investigation cannot detect the mode of engagement by investigative bodies.
Still, it's back to what we asked of what you call discretion. It's an option we have, and we determine at what point do we engage the people physically and at what point do we make some other moves that might be some touchable areas within the domain of the investigations or beyond. And the way we are going about it and the way the commentary is being run and the way questions are being asked, as much as we try to explain it, that when you have come under crime notice, or you have come under crime investigation, or you have come under national security interest in investigations rebutting on issues or responsibility that has been handed to you. You do not have the right. You do not pick and choose the methodologies to be used. And you do not decide when to report and when not to report, particularly where we borrow this democracy from. That is the way it has been done all over the world. If we are changing it in our own peculiar circumstance, then let us say so. But we hypocritically creating a scenario where we are creating a hostile environment for investigative bodies and institutions with persecutor authorities. What the OSP has done and what Yoko will do or what the BNI has done, it is a standard procedure. They have the options and they decide which one to trigger at what point. What we in the public domain should be interested in, whether his right has been abused and whether we have infringed on his right, because in a democracy, rule of law is key. And investigative bodies knows that whatever they do, the outcomes of it could be litigated in court or it could be fiercely scrutinized.
And you have the security analyst Richard Kumado. Now, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association has called on its members across public health facilities to remain resolute in the ongoing strike. The association on Monday began a phased rollout of a nationwide strike with the wearing of red armbands and hoisting of flags. The action will be escalated by June 9 by withdrawing outpatient as well as emergency services to back their demand for the implementation of negotiated conditions of service. However, some nurses and midwifery unions distance themselves from the strike. The group, in a statement, is accusing the Ministry of Health of intimidation and divisive tactics intended to break their front. But first, let's hear from the Public Relations Officer of the Ministry, Tony Goodman, explaining the Ministry of Health's position on the strike.
Still, it's back to what we...
On our part, our mandate is to provide quality healthcare to the people of this country. Nurses are not happy. They want to go on strike. What do? We have to go to the aid of the patients. For these reasons, what we have done is to lay down some directive for various managers to undertake. We know that out of the 5 groupings, we really have one nursing group going on this industrial action. We want the police to protect the others because we've been told that they have formed a task force to visit hospitals and attack those who are ready to provide health care. Don't also forget that we know that some midwives, psychiatric nurses, took them to court because they are not happy with the document as it stands now. So obviously they will be attacked. We want the police, the national security to provide some security for such persons so that they can provide care for you and I who will go to the hospitals.
And you heard that Tony Goodman, he speaks for the Ministry of Health. We're joined by a video call now by David Tinkwan Chum. He's General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, madam, and good afternoon to your viewers.
You accuse the government of employing divisive tactics, as it were, to disrupt your strike. Why are you saying so?
Absolutely. I mean, if you just listen to what Tony Goodman said, these are communist inferior tactics. And my dear sister, we have seen this since 1960. Okay? GRNMA is an apolitical organization. We are relevant today by virtue of the fact that we have remained apolitical. And the most important thing, the foremost objective of the association is to seek for the economic interests of nurses and midwives in Ghana. So we have seen this countless occasions since the days of Nkrumah to today. And we are very resolute. We think that these things, let me tell Tony Goodman. You see, sometimes when you play propaganda with the lives of Ghanaians, these are some of the things that you say.
Mr. Tinkwan, exactly what, yeah.
He says 1 out of the 5 labor unions. He should talk about the numerical strength. We have 128,000 nurses and midwives in Ghana. GRNMA can boast of 96,000. So he's making it, you see, this propaganda, instead of averting their minds to the concerns that we have raised and coming out with solutions to resolve the matter. Look at what they are doing. They are playing to the gallery.
So what I want to understand is exactly what did Tony say that you think it's inferior and, other words you use to describe what he said?
I said that to intimidation, clearly, we are deploying the security. Let me tell Tony Goodman that if you are looking for a cadre of professionals that are bold, that is the midwives. We are able to nurse patients to their death, and oftentimes we stay with them or the dead body on the ward till the following morning.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chuma. You see what he said as threats?
I see it as a tactic of intimidation, and I just want him to know that we are not going to be deterred by these words of intimidation.
Have you?
Okay, and I just reiterated that if you are looking for professionals, a cadre of professionals that are bold and are resolute, they are nurses and midwives. And I told you that sometimes, in an extreme cases when we have nursed patients to their peaceful death, we are able to stay with them on the ward in the night till the following morning. So he cannot scare us. That's what I want to say.
Have you at any point engaged the government on your concerns?
On several occasions. I remember they even issued a statement and they indicated that they've met at more than 5 consecutive times. How many times do they want us to meet to resolve just a simple matter? They want us to meet for 10 times. Listen to me, my dear. Are they asking us that we should meet them for 20 consecutive times before they can resolve the matter? It's a very simple thing. My dear, let me bring this to the attention of Ghanaians. We are not against the people of Ghana. We have negotiated our condition of service. It is not subject to renegotiations. All what we expect the employer to do is to approve the document and so that the implementation can start.
Excellent.
Right?
You just admitted, I'm sorry, for the sake of time, I'm sorry, we don't have all the time. You're just admitting that your services are essential for the life of Ghanaians. Yes, you have negotiated your conditions of service and all of that, and you seem to give the impression that you're willing to help ensure that there is no crisis on the health front. What extra are you willing to do to ensure that we don't see the catastrophe that may, occur should you continue with your strike? That's all I'm asking, with the import of the question being what you had done in terms of engagement with the government.
Now, we have engaged them adequately. We think that we have satisfied our part of the bargain. It is left to them to do the needful. And what they need to do is simply sign the document or approve the document for implementation. That's it. If they're able to do that, we move.
We ended here. Thank you very much. David Tenkwang Chum is the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Now, the Twin Fire and flood disaster 10 years ago left more than 150 people dead. Houses and properties running into billions of Ghana cedis were equally destroyed. The committee that was set up following the disaster recommended, among other things, complete dredging of the Odo River, ban on use of plastics as carrier bags, and provision of air ambulance and air firefighters. The victims continue to press on for compensations. Judith Brown chronicles the events in this explainer.
It's been 10 years since the twin disaster that brought Ghana to a standstill. Flood and fire, horror and heartbreak. Over 150 lives lost, dozens more injured, a city traumatized. But beyond the pain and destruction, that night showed us briefly. Strangers becoming heroes and ordinary people risking their lives to help others. Ghana stood together on that fateful day. Well, a decade later, the question still echoes. Have we really learned anything? It happened on a Wednesday, June 3, 2015. It had rained heavily that day, more than usual for the season. By evening, parts of Accra were submerged under flood waters. In the heart of the city, Kwame Nkrumah Circle was one of the worst hit areas. Dozens of people sought shelter at the Gore Filling Station, hoping to wait out the rain. But unknown to many, a full leak from an underground tank was mixing with the floodwaters. And then came a spark from an unknown source. The station exploded. Flames, panic, screams, and devastation followed.
I was standing by the window there. The fire came from the left side. And another one made it. And then it drew the iron gates down there. The whole building was shaking. I thought it was collapsed.
We heard the military crying, where are you people? And we said, we are here. So they came up and they told us that, you see, this time is between life and death.
Judith Brown with that explainer bringing us really what transpired some 18 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll go back to Judith Brown, who has the latest on this, plus some more. Don't go away.
Hello, Ghana. It's a new year and Bill's Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bill's offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bill's makes it happen. Call Bill's Microcredit today. Call 0596-920-833 or 0302-200-390 and get started. Bill's is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bill's, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Freezer, yeah, diaba. Adama for diaba, a freezer. Adama, a crafty mensia. Adama, Metamosua, my sorry. Canino, Obo Moasia. I do for no be a munum and last night. I tell what we did. Adama for adwena kuafo ho hu say ye de aduro ba kope e be shifu ye bia high technology akofo freezer ba wenku a eno aso benya 15 latest no ahwiegum watia no ahwiegum o de basia fu ye bia ni o basia bio e kwoti say obeti mo no na mu ye sure say o men sure ntasie ne mu ase na afọ na anu a freezer umpa we na apade freezer
basia e be so do so aman amoni age
omuti na me wasika omuti na me di me nyina duru bia so mu dum Adama without Adama no kuya Adama you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for edwe bi wo baby biara ye ton kai ho edwu afi kayo na kenkan enchoya ewo edre ho.
You're still here on the Midwifes on 3FM 92.7. Let's connect to civil engineer Abdullahi Muhammad. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome, my dear.
We had you on agenda on Tuesday, really talking about floods and whether or not we had even learnt anything from the June 3 disaster. It's been 10 years since this. From an engineering standpoint, as it were, how would you assess the structural vulnerabilities we have even right now, perhaps starting with what contributed to what we saw?
Well, I'll say a good afternoon to your authorities. I'm not too sure that a lot has changed. I believe that maybe the OMCs are rather the ones who are actually championing their localized stations and how to tighten their safety audits to be able to stay abreast or stay afloat with the regulations. But when it comes to institutions that I'm not too certain that a lot of things has been done because after the June 3rd disaster, there was another disaster that happened, I think, on the 8th of October 2017 at the atomic gas explosion. There was a communique from government cabinet meeting at the time, and there were a lot of 22 communiques that were supposed to be the directive to be followed. One of the critical ones was to, at least, not to construct a filling station within areas of like school proximities, and then the minimum distance between one filling station to the other should be 300 meter radius. But what are we seeing? There are springing up like mushrooms at very close proximity to each other. It then means that it goes beyond the recalcitrant developers themselves. The NPA should be culpable or should be held responsible because if the filters do not meet the basic requirements, you don't supply them with fuel. And so I think that aside the developers who are actually checking their responsibility to just go with their common mandate, the assembly is also not doing the right thing in some instances. The NPA, EPA, and all those institutions mandated to actually clone the power to be ensure that we do the right thing are not being followed. And I think that maybe there have been some few adjustments here and there, but the status quo still remains the same, where you still see filling stations and other things bringing out. If we're talking about what happened at the Inter disaster, we are supposed to treat it that there are two factors. The rain came, the flood inundated the community, the surface, and then filling stations also exploded. And these two are the critical ones that we have to address. When we look at the filling stations, it's not being addressed well. When we look at the rain, the flood also not being addressed. That is where we find ourselves.
What kind of immediate interventions do we need 10 years on?
We think that the government should actually start to identify new filling stations, new edifices that are springing up. And then let's look at what are the regulations being met. Are they meeting the regulations? What are the compelling reasons why we haven't those structures sitting there? Can government go beyond the limit and get those structures removed? And then charge the developers if they are found culpable. And can we also ensure that the engineers who are the assemblies are giving permits? And if we find out that question mark permits are given to some of the structures who may either do not understand or may be we don't have that regulation being followed. What happens with the assemblies who are issued those to identify these people and then find them? When we get to those areas, I'm sure that we'll start to make some headway. Otherwise, the development that we are having across the country is going on with some of this recklessness, and then we're not finding anybody, and we're not seeing anybody. So, I said one thing, that the white man is not disciplined, but the the institutions or the regulations will make you disciplined. That's what we have to encourage by enforcing that regulations, by the media houses also doing a lot by putting on portals that people can now, send question mark development within their areas, and then when the media houses have them, they can now project them on their cities because you guys are very powerful. And when you do that, you can name and shame. And that's how the country has to start to develop on that side of the fourth arm of the law. That's the fourth media. That's the media houses making a very good difference in the society.
My last question to you would be how critical proper urban planning, especially in flood-prone areas, perhaps is now.
We have to zone in properly. We have to ensure that the zonings are adhered to. We have to see that initially we have the natural zones that are done already. If we think that there are other houses which are still the bottleneck, we have to get them out. And I don't think that we should leave everything to the Minister for Greater Accra or the other regions. We should let this people be seen in the bad light. Assemblies are there. The local planning authorities are there. Don't mess up and then let the woman or the minister be painted in a bad faith. You understand? People should not see the minister to be the bad person doing the demolition, when in fact the mess is created by localized assemblies. That's what we have to do. The assemblies have to take responsibility and ensure that they sanitize it, so that the minister will not be the one to come and sanitize the whole the region. That is not good for the image of the minister himself or herself.
Ended here. Thank you very much, Civil Engineer Abdullahi Mahama. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's get a quick update from Judith Brown, my colleague who's visited the site. Judith, just tell us what's happening.
Right, and so Beatrice, I'm currently at Circle opposite Vienna City, where a number of victims of the tragic disaster that occurred on June 3rd, 2015, have gathered to firstly commemorate the event and also make their concerns heard. Their concerns are simple. They want government to stop seeing them as simple statistics, but as real human beings who have experienced something tragic and need help. They're also calling on government to help with compensation. Most of them here say that 10 years after the incident, they've still not been compensated for what happened, and they are living in, challenge. They are going through a lot of challenges as a result. And so I spoke to a few of them. One of the women here lost her husband to the tragedy. She is a mother of three. Her husband used to work around Circle and unfortunately died during the incident, the tragic fire, and she has had to cater for her children all by herself, 3 children by herself, and it's not been easy for her, so she's calling on government for help. She says that during the period in 2015, back then all government did was to help with the expenses of the funeral for her husband, but has not helped her with any other thing, and so she's having difficulties raising all 3 children, and she's calling on government for help and compensation. I also spoke to another man who was immediately or directly impacted by the fire. You could see burns on his body all over. In fact, there are a number of people here with burns on their bodies, and he explained to me that he used to work at Kantamanto selling clothing, but was unfortunately caught up during the fire, and he was one of the victims that were under the water while there was fire on top of it and had to struggle his way through. He was able to survive, luckily for him, but his business was destroyed, and although government took care of his medical bills, he never got any compensation for the loss of his livelihood and others. And so these are some of the concerns of victims of the fire incidents here, and they're calling on government to look back at them and compensate them 10 years on, Beatrice.
Horrifying stories, so 10 years on, but briefly, in 30 seconds, if you're able to tell us whether you've seen any government representative and there's been any word coming from that person.
Right, and so unfortunately, there are no government representatives here as of yet. All we saw earlier was Samuel Hosi, who is a representative of One Ghana Movement, and that's a civil society organization. He came here as well earlier this morning and spoke to the victims and also relayed some of their concerns, as I have stated earlier. But there are no government representatives here at the moment.
Thank you very much, Judith Brown. my colleague there at that site where the incident happened on the 3rd of June 2015. There's more later in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to streetnews.com for more news. Have a good afternoon.
FM 92.7, Urban Lifestyle Radio Station.
And hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7 with me, Michael Obodu. Coming up, Bank of Ghana directs banks to review pricing models to ensure customers' charges reflect ethical and commercial defensible standards. We hear from Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama. Also, ratings agency Fitch projects Ghana's household spending to hit 129.7 billion cedis in 2025, backed by cedi stability, cooler inflation, and lower debt cost. We'll bring you details of that shortly. And later, Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Dr. Adu Anani Entry says calm restored to Ghana's investment market as he urges public to rebuild confidence after turmoil caused by banking sector cleanup and debt restructuring. We have details of these and many other stories coming up shortly. Please don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. And the Bank of Ghana has raised red flags over questionable interest charges being imposed by some commercial banks on dormant credit accounts. At a high-level meeting with bank heads in Accra, Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama revealed that certain institutions have been charging interest on inactive credit lines, in some cases allowing the debt to balloon beyond the original loan amount. The central bank says the practice not only undermines customer protection, but also distorts the true health of banks' lending portfolios, prompting a directive for banks to clean up their pricing framework and align with fair lending principles.
We have received reports that some banks continue to apply. We have received reports on credit accounts that remain inactive. Even though they are inactive, some banks continue to apply interest charges, and this often results in cases where the accrued interest exceeds the original principal. Now let me be clear, colleagues. Such practices are unacceptable and must end. They distort customer outcomes. They misrepresent the true profitability of lending portfolios, and they violate the principles of fair treatment and transparency. We expect all banks to review their pricing models and ensure that customer charges reflect ethical and commercially defensible standards. The third one is in the area of digital lending.
Meanwhile, Dr. Johnson Isiama says the central bank will soon issue a directive to cap optional issuer fees on cross-currency card transactions at 2%. The move comes amid rising concerns over non-transparent pricing by card issuers with limited disclosure to consumers. Dr. Isiama says these trends are undermining public confidence in the financial system.
We've noted a growing trend in the application of optional issuer fees, or what is called OIFs, when it comes to cross-currency card transactions. In principle, we recognize that these fees may reflect real costs. However, opaque pricing and limited disclosure have already begun to erode consumer trust and the integrity of payment systems. To this end, the Bank of Ghana will soon issue a directive, and the directive seeks to do a number of things. It seeks to address gaps optional user fees when it comes to cross-currency card transactions, and we seek to cap these at 2%. Secondly, we will require the mandatory disclosure of all applicable OIFs to customers before a transaction is completed.
That was Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Johnson Esiama, speaking. Now, household spending in Ghana is expected to pick up significantly in 2025, reaching 129.7 billion cedis. That's according to UK-based research firm Fitch Solutions, which attributes the recovery to improved currency stability, moderating inflation, and lower debt servicing cost for consumers. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report.
Households in Ghana are set to spend more in 2025, with real household expenditure projected to hit 129.7 billion cedis, a 2.5% increase from last year's weaker growth of just 1.1%. That's the latest from Fitch Solutions, which believes this rebound will push household spending more than 25% above pre-pandemic levels recorded in 2019. The UK-based firm says cooler inflation and a more stable cedi will support the Bank of Ghana to maintain a dovish monetary stance, helping reduce borrowing cost and boosting disposable income. Fitch adds that the expected real GDP growth of 4.2% will further support consumer confidence and economic activity, despite a slow start to the year, with mobile money transactions dipping to under 700 million in February from December's record high. The outlook remains strong. The temporary dip, Fitch explains, followed election-related uncertainties and post-festive season fatigue. But with inflation easing, it expects stronger consumer activity in the coming months.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, Chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Adu Anani, says calm has returned to Ghana's investment climate following years of turbulence triggered by the banking sector cleanup and the domestic debt exchange program. Speaking to investors and the public, he urged Ghanaians to restore their confidence in the capital market, emphasizing that reforms undertaken under the current administration have stabilized the sector and created a safer environment for investments.
Every investment has some risks, but some of them are very low. Government securities, especially T-bills, are very low risk. So if you are that person who does not want to go into any, not riskless. Every company, every investment will have some element of risk, but relatively, the government short-term treasury bill, the short-term debt instrument, which is the treasury bill, is the lowest of the risk. So if a young man, you put it in there, and as I indicated, maybe if you start and you put some 5,000 now into treasury bill and say, I'm not going to touch it, and you wait for the next, if you are 20, you wait until you come on requirement, you hit a million, you become a millionaire.
That was the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Adu Anani Entry, bringing an end to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please visit our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Urban Blend continues. Stay tuned.